have a PowerPoint presentation that I am showing, because when it comes to food labels, it's good to be able to look at imagery. Okay. So let me make sure I got the color. That all right. It looks like it's pretty good. So I'm going to be sharing a PowerPoint presentation again with lots of images and stuff like that, so that we'll be able to fully see what it is by. I am doing that right now. Presenter view. Okay, so I think I am all set. Am I? I think I am all set. All right. So, hello everyone. Have you ever looked at a food label and thought, what does all of this mean? Okay. So you're looking at a food label and you're looking at all of the numbers, all of the percentages, all of the, the different categories that they have. So you ever look at them and wonder, what do all of these numbers mean? Well, if that's the case, then you are absolutely not alone, because food companies and experts and people, hello, people, they're using this as a clever marketing trick or tip or trick. They're very, very clever. And so my job is to try to teach you an opportunity on how to outsmart them, so that you are not choosing the unhealthier option. So by the end of this session, you will know exactly what to look for when you go grocery shopping. And I want to hear from you throughout the lesson, so that, we can kind of help clarify, or, clear up some things that you may have when it comes to you looking at food labels. Okay. So, and of course, I want you to stay with me till the end, where I'll be revealing one of the biggest food label red flags that most people tend to miss. Okay. So, you definitely don't want to miss out on that. So, stick around until the end. And if you can see the people that are on YouTube, you'll see that I have a picture of several different cereal boxes with food label. And so the subtitle is Learn How to Spot Misleading Labels and Make Healthier Choices. So, just a quick recap, or for those people who are new, who may not know who I am a graduate professor. I am a National Academy of Sports Medicine certified personal trainer. I'm also a corrective exercise specialist with over 20 years of teaching experience and experience in the field of health and wellness. I am also the author of 4 books, 2 different planners and journals, and I'm extremely passionate about educating and empowering others to make healthier choices. So, my goal is to help to improve health and wellness in my community through education, fitness, and wellness initiatives. And so, here's a shameless plug of all of my books and my journals and planners and things like that. All right, so now let's get into the nitty gritty. Okay, let's get into the nitty gritty. Why are food labels important? Why do they even matter? Okay, what's the purpose of food labels? So, food labels should make shopping easy, but if we're trying to be real, they really don't make shopping easier. Instead, they tend to use a lot of buzzwords that sometimes sound like you are, healthy, but when all actuality, you're not. Have you ever bought something labeled that said low fat? Okay, and thought that this is healthy. But surprise, a lot of different low fat foods and items that you purchase are packed with sugar. So they may take the fat out, but they have to substitute the fat with flavor, which sometimes tends to be sugar. Or have you ever had a product as said it was labeled natural, and you assumed that it was better because it said natural on it? Well, sometimes natural doesn't really mean anything. Even junk food can sometimes have the label natural on it. Okay. So that's why learning to decode food labels is so very, very important. Have there been any food labels that you can think of, or any terms that sounded healthy to you that wasn't healthy, that you found out later that wasn't healthy? Anything at all? Were there any food labels, terms that you heard that you thought were healthy, but it turns out that it wasn't really healthy at all? You can comment in the chat. Anything at all. Okay, so while I'm waiting for comments, I'm going to keep going. So let's break down the anatomy of a food label. So let's break it down. So we're going to go section by section of a food label, so you'll never feel lost again when you are going grocery shopping. Okay. So we have a serving size, calories, we have macronutrients, we have ingredient lists, and then we have percent daily value. So on the next slide, I'm going to show you what those food labels look like. So on this slide, you will see that we have a picture of a side-by-side food label. Okay, so on the food label, we have serving size. So serving size is listed at the very top of your food label. And companies tend to sometimes trick you by making serving sizes tiny so that you think a product has less calories in it, but it actually doesn't work that way. Okay. So again, a company will trick you by making serving sizes really small, like 2/3 cup or 1/4 cup and things like that. But it doesn't really necessarily have fewer calories in it. The next item that you will see on the food label is going to be calories. So calories tell you the amount of energy. That's what a calorie is. It's a source of energy. It will tell you how much energy that you can get from this particular food item. But what matters most is where the calories come from. So are the calories coming from sugar? Are they coming from protein? Are they coming from fat? So it tells you the calories, but you have to be mindful of where the calories are actually coming from. So then we have the macronutrients. So I know you've probably heard the term macros, or I got to count my macros. So macronutrients are just the amount of items that you need in a larger amount. So you need protein, carbs, and fat. So those are considered to be macronutrients. Now, micronutrients are the things that you need in smaller amounts. So those would be like your vitamins, minerals, things like that. So proteins, carbs, and fats are all of the things that you need, but oftentimes too much sugar will help to throw everything off. Okay. So this is what we want to be mindful of. So the next thing that you're going to look at on this PowerPoint is going to be the ingredient list. So with the ingredient list, the shorter the list, the better. Okay. If you can find a food item that has, 5 ingredients or less, then that is going to be better. If it looks like it's a science experiment because it has multiple different ingredients, I'm talking about you're buying one item, but it's got 30 different ingredients in it, then that's something that you maybe want to skip and try to find something that's going to be a little bit healthier. So then you have on the right side of your food calorie or food label, you're going to see something that says daily or percent daily value. And so that helps you to see if something is high in nutrients or if something is low in nutrients. Okay. And there's something that's called a 520 rule that will help you to determine if something is going to be high or if something is going to be low. All right. So let's do a little quick check. Can you tell me how many servings that you think are in a bag of potato chips, or what a serving of potato chips actually is? Comment if you think you know. And again, this is a judgment free zone. If you get it right, cool. If you don't, cool. We're all here to learn. So comment in the chat what a serving of potato chips actually is. How many potato chips is equal to a serving? How many potato chips is equal to a serving? Okay, so someone said the whole bag is one serving. Okay. All right, you got 12 to 15 chips. All right, so I think we have a winner. Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner. All right, so if you look at this slide, this is an image of an actual bag of potato chips. And so as you can see, a serving of potato chips is only 15 chips. Okay, so if you buy a family size of potato chips, which I do because that's my potato chips is my downfall. I love potato chips. But a serving is only 15 chips. And so the only way that a bag of potato chips will be a serving is if you get that teeny tiny bag that used to be a quarter that then moved up to 35 cents and is now 50 cents and in some places 75. That's an actual serving of potato chip. The bag that's this big. Okay. So a serving is only 15 grams. All right. So the next question is, how many of us actually eat only 15 potato chips? All right. How many people only eat 15 potato chips? So if I gave you a family size, are you only going to eat 15 potato chips, or are you going to grab a handful, which could sometimes, or a couple handfuls, which could possibly be a little bit more? So, yes, if you only eat one or one serving, being 15 potato chips, or no, if you may eat a little bit more. So, what's it going to be? Yes, you can eat a serving, which is only 15 chips, or no, you tend to eat a little bit more. What do you think? So, what do we have? Do we have a yes, we can eat 15 potato chips, or do we have no, I tend to eat a little bit more than a serving of potato chips? Okay, so I got Connie says I eat a little bit more. Yeah, I tend to eat a little bit more too, because when you think of, nobody really sits out and counts out 15 potato chips, right? Um, but we probably should, or at least, get one of those little scales that will help us to be a little bit better, because we may not want to count out 15 chips, but on the food guide, it will or the food label will tell you how many ounces is equivalent. So in this particular case, 1 ounce is equivalent to 15 potato chips. So then that will be a little better. I like to use a scale that seems to work a little bit better for me, because what counts as one chip? So if you're eating a potato chip and the potato chip is broken in half, do you count that as one? Or do you try to find another half of potato chip to try to make a whole? And so, sometimes we tend to, well, this doesn't really count. And again, you still end up eating a little bit more, because, half a potato chip doesn't count as a potato chip, a whole potato chip. All right, so now what you're looking at on the screen is something that's called the 520 rule. And the 520 rule is a really good way to be able to, it's a simple trick, which will be able to help you read food labels relatively quickly. Okay. If a nutrient that's in a food label is 5% or less, then it tends to be low. And that can be great for things like added sugar or sodium, if you're trying to watch your sodium intake. So if it's 5% or less, then that tends to be low. And that's a good thing if you're looking at, sugar and sodium. If it is 20% or higher, then that tends to be high. And so that could be great for things like fiber, because most of us, they call our diet in the United States the SAD diet, which stands for Standard American Diet. They call our diet SAD, and I tend to agree in certain aspects of that. If you are, a lot of us don't get enough fiber in our diets. And that's why we tend to be hungry all the time, is because a lot of our foods are stripped of the fiber, and fiber is what helps to keep us fuller longer. So if you're eating a food item, you want to try to see if you can get it closer to the 20% when it comes to fiber. Okay. And also your vitamins. Now, examples could be where you have cereals that are 25% added sugar. That's too much sugar. Okay. So that should be a red flag. All right. Now, if it has 25% fiber, then that will be really good. That would be a good food item. So you want to be able to use this quick trick when you're looking at food labels in the grocery store, because it'll be able to help you make better decisions when it comes to your food items. Comment in the chat. Have you ever heard of this 520 rule before? Is this something that you've ever heard of? Give me a yes if you've heard of the 520 rule. Give me a no if this is something that's new. So again, give me a yes if this is something that you've heard about. Give me a no if this is something that you have not heard about. Okay, so I got a few yeses, but more no's. Okay, so now you have another tool in your tool belt when you go grocery shopping. All right, so now what we're looking at on the screen is a sample label for a macaroni and cheese box. Okay, so a food label for a macaroni and cheese box. So I want you to take a look at the colors that's on the screen. The colors that are in yellow, those are the colors that you want to limit. Those are the colors that you want to keep closer to 5%. Okay. The areas that's in the blue, those are the areas that you want to keep closer to 20%. So the people that's on TikTok that may not have access to the PowerPoint, the areas in yellow are total fat, saturated fat, trans fat, cholesterol, and sodium. Those are the first 3 or 4 things that's on the food label. So you want to keep those things at 5% or less. Now, the blue area is your dietary fiber, Then you have your vitamin A, C, calcium, iron, stuff like that. You want to keep those items closer to 20%. Okay. So again, the first three or four items that's on the food label, you want those 5% or less. And then everything else, the dietary fiber, vitamins, minerals, iron, you want those items closer to 20%. So again, the people that have joined in on TikTok, if you want this PowerPoint presentation at the end of this video, just go to YouTube and you can download it there where you'll be able to see all of the slides. All right, so the areas that you are looking at in red is just the percent daily value where you'll be able to see exactly where your percentages are. So again, you want to keep your fat, saturated fat, trans fat, cholesterol, sodium 5%, closer towards that 5% area. Okay. All right, so here's how to decode a food label like a pro. Number one, you're going to ignore the stuff that's on the front label. It's all marketing. Okay. It's all done by design because we'll see, ooh, low fat, and then we'll go and grab it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that because it says low fat, that it's healthy for you. Okay. So ignore the front label. Go straight to the ingredients. Look at the ingredient list. The shorter the ingredient list, the better. And then you want to watch out for those fake healthy claims like no added sugar, and things like that, because no added sugar doesn't mean necessarily that it's sugar free. It still has sugar in it, but they didn't add additional sugar. And you will be able to see that when you read the food label during your 520 rule. Okay. So now we're going to move on to some other sneaky food label tricks that you may be coming across and not realizing. So one of the biggest food label scams out there is the wording that they put on the food label. So number one, natural. Natural doesn't necessarily mean anything legally. Natural can be on junk food. Okay. It can be labeled natural. Then you might see multi-grain versus whole grain. Okay. Multi-grain just means that it has more than one grain, but what type of grain? Those grains could be refined grains, which is not necessarily good because you want whole grains. Okay. So multi-grain could be a lot of different nothing added together, if that makes any sense. No added sugar. Again, it sounds great, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's sugar free. A product can still load up an ingredient or a food item with natural sugars or fruit juice concentrates and things like that. Fat free doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be uh, healthy per se, because again, when they take out the fat from it, they have to replace that flavor with something, and it usually tends to be sugar and in some instances sodium. Okay. All right. Give me a thumbs up if we're all on board with this so far. Give me a thumbs up if you're all on board with what you're hearing so far. Does this all make sense so far? Does this all make sense so far? Okay, I'm going to move on. All right, so what happens when a food is refined? Because we sometimes hear that as well. Well, that's refined, that's a refined grain. So, what does that mean? Well, grains such as like white flour, rice flour, things like that, the bran and the germ of the particular wheat grain or the grain is removed, leaving something just called the endosperm, which is just the starchy part of that particular grain, which digests very, very quickly into our bloodstream, which causes us to spike or causes our blood sugar to spike. Okay. So again, with a grain, you have the bran, you have the germ, and then you have something called the endosperm. When something is refined, they take away the bran, they also take away the germ, and they just leave the endosperm, which is the starchy part that gets absorbed really, really quickly and causes our blood sugar to spike. So then we have sugar. Your sugars could be white sugar, corn syrup, and they're stripped of nutrients that turned or they're turned into like a highly processed, fast digesting sweetener, which of course can lead to cravings and energy crashes. And then you have oils like vegetable oils, canola oils, often refined using chemicals and high heat, which is why you might see olive oil that says cold pressed. Okay, so cold pressed oils means that they're not using a lot of heat. And even, when you add a lot of heat to something, it kind of denatures it. It kind of destroys the natural structure of it. So if you purchase like juices, for example, you'll have juices that are cold pressed juices. So that means that they're not heating up the process doesn't involve a lot of heating up. So you hold on to more of the nutrients that's in that particular item. So like I use a lot of cold pressed olive oil. Okay. All right. So again, when these refined or with these refined oils, what tends to happen is they remove all of the beneficial things that's good for you, and they create unhealthy trans fats, which are not good for you. So on this screen right here, we're just looking at a bunch of healthy whole grains. So we have like wheat berries and oatmeal. You have amaranth. We have barley, spelt. Okay, I have some spelt flour, and I made some really good muffins, or not muffins, but rolls. Made some really good rolls with the spelt flour. And so there are a lot of different whole grains here. On this screen here, you're looking at a picture of what I was just talking about in terms of what the whole grain looks like, and then what a refined grain looks like. So with the whole grain, with bran is filled with fiber, and it has vitamins and minerals. So the germ has vitamins, vitamin E, phytochemicals, healthy fats, all of that good stuff. And then, of course, the white part, the endosperm, is just the starchy carbohydrate that we tend to digest extremely quickly. And then it causes our blood sugars to spike. Okay. So again, that's what a refined grain is. So refined, they remove pretty much everything that's, healthy for you. They remove it. So here's the golden rule when you are checking food labels or when you're checking ingredients: less is better. If a product has 5 ingredients or fewer, then it's most likely a real food, and that is a great sign. So try to read the ingredients and see if the food label or if the ingredients are 5 or less. Now, if you're looking at a food item and it has a paragraph of chemicals and most of the things on there you cannot pronounce, then you might want to put it back. So, for example, you can compare your peanut butters, right? So one may have just peanuts and a little bit of salt, when others have sugars, hydrogenated oils, and all of these other different types of weird additives. And additives are added to food to help with flavor, to help with shelf life, and help with stability and stuff like that. So that's why these additives are added. But again, natural whole foods, they don't need all of that. Okay. So that's what you want to look for when you're looking at food items and your ingredients. Look for the ones that have 5 or less. Here's something else that food companies don't want you to know: that food ingredients are listed in the order of weight. Okay. Food ingredients are listed in the order of weight. So that means that the first ingredient is what that particular food item is made up the most of. Okay. So if the first ingredient, for example, is whole oats, then that's going to be a great sign. If the first ingredient is whole oats, then that's a great sign. But if the first ingredient is sugar, then that means that most of your food item, that particular food item, is made up of sugar. And that's definitely something that you don't want to get. So companies often also tend to split sugar into multiple names and add it onto the food list. So one of the ingredients may say just sugar. Then another ingredient may say cane sugar. Then you have maltose. Then you have high fructose corn syrup. Then you have dextrose. You have all of these different names for sugar, and they had it scattered across the label. So you think that it's something else, but when in all actuality, all of the different ingredients is pretty much the same thing. They all add up to the number one ingredient, which is sugar. Okay. So again, all the ingredients are listed in order of weight. So if you buy a lemonade and the first ingredient is water, then that means that the most of that item is water. If the second ingredient is sugar, then that means that you're drinking sugar water. If the third ingredient is lemon, you're drinking lemon flavored sugar water. Okay? Always look at the ingredients, they're listed in order. Okay? All right, so Sugar, of course, is one of the sneakiest ingredients on the on the label, and brands know that we're looking for it, which is why there's so many different names for it, and they try to disguise it under different names. So again, cane juice, maltose, dextrose, high fructose corn syrup, agave nectar, all of these are different names for sugar. So if you see multiple sugars on the or food label in different forms, then add them up to try to see how much of that ingredient or how much of that item actually contains sugar. Okay, so you want to add that all up and see what actually is the main ingredient in that particular food item. So now we're looking at a picture of a granola bar. Okay, most of us tend to eat those granola bars. And so granola bars tend to be uh, promoted or marketed as being healthy. And the reason why this could be misleading is instead of just saying, companies splitting up these different names or sugar names into different things, you want to look and see what you have listed in the first form, and then you want to look at all the other ingredients that you're going down. So if you're looking at this food label here, the first word is whole grain oats. Then you have sugar is the second item. So if we're listed in order of weight, then that means that most of the items is going to be sugar and oats. But if you look further down, not only does it contain sugar, then it has honey, then it has brown sugar syrup. Okay, it has all of these different other things. So you have three different names for sugar on the ingredient list. Okay, now these tend to be marketed as being healthy, but sometimes they can have just as much sugar in them as a candy bar. Okay, so again, you want to read the label, look at the different names for sugar, and see what you come up with. Another thing that could be marketed as being healthy could be those flavored yogurts, like the Dan and fruit on the bottom, okay? The Chobani yogurts and stuff like that, the Yoplait. All of those different things are marketed as being healthy, but sometimes they are high in sugar. So yogurt is marketed as having a high protein and being a healthy snack, but many of those different flavored yogurts could have somewhere between 15 to 25 grams of sugar per serving. So if you look at the image on the screen here, this particular yogurt has 24 grams of sugar in it. Okay, it has 24 grams of sugar. Now, again, sugar is hidden under many different names, and a lot of times consumers don't even realize that that's how much sugar that they're actually eating because they're hidden under so many different names. Okay. So what do we have here? Yep. So we have pectin, we have fruit juice, we have sugar. So that's three different names right there for sugar that's listed in this yogurt option. Okay, so this is for, I think this was Yoplait or Dannon, I forget. But anyway, here is the Chobani yogurt. Now this has a little less ingredients on this particular option. Looks like it's coconut, and it has two different types of sugar in it. So it has cane sugar as ingredient number two. So if it's cane sugar ingredient number two, so the first ingredient is non-fat milk and the second ingredient is sugar. So we know, since ingredients are listed in order of weight, that most of this particular food item contains milk and sugar. We know that because we know, we have learned that ingredients are listed in the order of weight. And further on, number four is fruit pectin. So it has more sugar in it. Okay. So you got three different or two or three different types of sugar listed, again, all in the same ingredient list. So now we move on to breakfast cereals. Okay, a lot of us sometimes we get hungry and we're ready to, grab something to eat, and the first thing that we try to grab for is some cereal. And so we have what I have on the screen here is some Honey Nut Cheerios. So some of us may tend to not want to eat Frosted Flakes because in our mind we tend to think, well, Frosted Flakes is frosted with sugar, so it has more sugar. So you may tend to stay away from that one. However, Honey Nut Cheerios are being marketed as healthy. Oh, it's honey nut, it's honey, it's good for the heart, right? So cereals, especially ones like this, seems healthier, like the Special K with berries, right? But often contain multiple sugar sources. So even cereals could be labeled whole grain, like this one, or heart healthy, can have 10 plus grams of sugar per serving. Okay. So the portion size on the label is small, But again, a lot of times people are not going to eat 3/4 cup of cereal, right? When you eat cereal, you're going to eat a bowl, right? You're going to eat a bowl of cereal. You're not going to eat 3/4 cup of cereal. And so again, you pour into a bowl, and then now you have doubled or tripled the amount of sugar that you're looking at, right? And so on this particular screen, we have the ingredients for Honey Nut Cheerios, but let me move into a little closer screen. All right, so on the screen for Honey Nut Cheerios, the first ingredient, whole grain oats, okay? The second ingredient, cornstarch. The third ingredient, honey. The fourth ingredient, brown sugar syrup, right? And so we've had three or four different names of sugar all in the first four ingredients, okay? So this again is labeled or marketed as being healthy, no artificial colors, no artificial flavors, right? But again, if we know that the food is listed in order of weight, then we know that if the first ingredient is whole grain oats, and the second ingredient is sugar, and the third ingredient is cornstarch, and the fourth ingredient is honey, and the fifth ingredient is brown sugar syrup. Okay, did y'all catch that? Did y'all catch that? Give me an emoji right now in the chat that kind of gives me what you think about what I just said. Post an emoji in the chat, whether it's the wow or, the shock. So again, the first ingredient is whole grain oats. The second ingredient, sugar. The third ingredient, cornstarch. The fourth ingredient, honey. The fifth ingredient, brown sugar syrup, right? So all of those, for the most part, is sugar listed in the first five ingredients. Okay. So again, it makes you kind of want to, think about the different types of foods that you're taking in, and not realizing that, if you're trying to be healthy, a lot of the times, or a lot of the reasons that people are having difficulty, getting to their weight goals, if you will, is because they're not realizing that it's a lot of different hidden sugars in the foods that they're eating and the beverages that they're drinking. Okay. So what is the biggest red or food label flag that most people miss? I think you already figured it out, right? I think you already figured out the biggest red flag when it comes to food labels that people tend to miss. Okay. And of course, the biggest red flag that people tend to miss is sugar. And that's because sugar is everywhere. And brands, they sneak it in. They're very sneaky about how they sneak the sugar in. They don't just say it contains sugar. They use 50 plus different names for sugar. Did you all know that it's way more than 50 different names for sugar? And sometimes you may see organic cane sugar or brown rice syrup. It's still sugar. Okay. So even so-called healthy foods like yogurt or granola bars and healthy quote unquote cereal can still have just as much sugar as a candy bar. And too much sugar tends to lead to energy crashes, cravings, weight gain, things like that. Okay. Now, I want you to take a look at the screen. And on this screen, for those of you that's watching on TikTok, I have a slide that contains 61 names for added sugar. And I'm sure that you all have seen a lot of these different names and not necessarily put two and two together where it was actually sugar that you're eating. So these, again, are just some of the names that you may have seen. Okay, so we have agave nectar, beet sugar, brown sugar, cane sugar, caramel, coconut sugar, confectioner sugar, corn syrups, dextrose. So we have a lot of different names for sugar that's listed in ingredients. And a lot of times people don't realize that that's what they're eating. Okay. So you think I'm buying something healthy, but the first six ingredients on the food item is sugar. So, all right, we're going to wrap this up with a few key takeaways that I want you to kind of remember. Number one, marketing tricks are everywhere. So always read past the front of the label. Okay. The front label, as soon as you see it, turn it around and read the back of the label. Hidden sugars and additives can definitely mess with your health. So you want to check the ingredients. Small, smart choices add up. You don't want to be perfect, or you don't have to be perfect about everything. You just want to be informed. And the more that you are able to understand food labels, the easier it makes for you to make better food choices. And so now you know how to do that. Now you know how to do that. When you look at the 520 rule, you know how to figure out what contains a little bit, too much fat and saturated fat and trans fat and food items that you want to have a little bit more fiber on. You know how to do that now, right? So that's what you want to do. You want to be able to make informed decisions when you are going to grocery shopping or going grocery shopping. It shouldn't be just go to the grocery store, grab things, throw it in the basket, and then leave. I mean, a lot of us have heard that phrase, if you want to hide something, put it in the book, right? Or if you want to hide something in this particular case, put it somewhere where people have to read. And so I'm one of those ones that will be in the grocery store looking at the boxes and comparing because, again, you want to make healthier choices because, again, health is wealth. And nobody tends to necessarily care about health until it's a problem. It's not a problem until it's a problem. I'm gonna just eat what I want to eat until it becomes a problem. Now I have to be, mindful, and I don't know where to start. And so doing simple things like this, like checking the food labels and stuff like that, will help you to make better educated decisions. So again, by manufacturers listing sugars separately, they distribute them throughout the food ingredient list, which is why you want to make sure that you read it. By them distributing them all throughout, it makes it less apparent just how much sugar is actually in a particular item. If it was combined all at the first, then sugar might appear as the primary ingredient, and they don't want that. Okay, that's why they separate it into all of these different names all throughout your ingredient list. Okay, so the key takeaway is to always read the food label, read the entire ingredient list, identify all the different sources of sugar, which could be listed under various names, which you have now in this PowerPoint. And so again, you want to try to practice this so that you can make better decisions. So with that being said, you did it. You now have the tools necessary to decode a food label like a pro. uh, at the end of the day, knowledge is power. So you want to be able to share what you have learned today with a friend or family, because again, a lot of our family and friends are sick and stuff like that. And a lot of the issues that we have, ladies and gentlemen, and I don't want to get on my soapbox, but a lot of the health issues that we have could be corrected through diet. I'm going to say that again. A lot of the food or a lot of the health problems that we have right now could be corrected through diet. A lot of us are eating ourselves into the grave because we're eating all of these different things that are not as healthy as other options. So please read the food label, share what you have learned with others so that they can make better educated discussions or, and decisions as well. And with that being said, make sure that if you have not, go and subscribe to my, YouTube channel, comment positive comments, of course, because I'm all about positive energy. Comment and share this information. The PowerPoint is there for you. Download it, use it wherever you see fit. And again, let's try to, what's some of the phrase we use, each one teach one. Like, yeah, we have to help each other out. Okay. Now for our next lesson, I will be discussing movement and mental health, why daily activity matters. So you may think you know some of the reasons why, but we're going to get into the nitty gritty of just why it's important. So we're going to try to tweak just one few movements or things that we can do throughout the course of the day to help you improve effective weight loss. Okay. And so that's what we're going to stick around with. And I'll be revealing the best habit stacking trick for weight loss when you come back on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Any questions? Any questions at all? Comment in the chat if you have any questions. Any questions at all? All right. It doesn't look like I have any questions. So again, those of you who have tuned in on TikTok, please go to my YouTube channel, subscribe, like, comment, download the PowerPoint presentation so that you can use it when you are grocery shopping in your future grocery store visits. With that being said, I will see you all later. Have an amazing day, and thank you so much for tuning in this evening. Bye.